My favorite part about being on the Astronaut Rescue Team was the exposure and ability to learn more about things of the Saturn V rocket and command module and the lunar rover and the lunar lander, and the opportunity to actually be engaged with, from time to time, and frequently, with the astronauts themselves. And there was a lot of opportunity to interact with the astronauts, particularly when they were preparing for a mission, because they had to take some firefighting training just as much as the rest of the workforce at Kennedy Space Center. And the fire department did a lot of the hands-on training with the astronaut crews. We really got into the training with him during the Apollo program. He was a cool guy. Neil Armstrong was down to earth, and he truly was a hero. Neil Armstrong was a fighter pilot and served World War II in Korea, and was a decorated military firefighter pilot before he was an astronaut. Neil Armstrong was a down-to-earth guy. And one of the interesting things, Joe Engle was one of the backup astronauts. And when they were out for some training and familiarization with the Astronaut Rescue Team, they were enamored with the armored personnel carriers. And NASA didn't want the astronauts doing anything that they might get hurt, and they didn't want them driving the APCs, the M113s. So I took them on a ride, and we were out riding around the area and over some hills. And I stopped, and I get out of the seat, and I said, "Okay, Joe, you see how these levers work?" And Joe Engle got in, and Joe Engle drove that thing around. We come back, pulled up, and when he climbed out of that hatch, I got chewed out. But yeah, I got to meet those astronauts. They were super people. Super people. You know, it's interesting. There were a lot of very important and famous people who arrived at the Kennedy Space Center for every launch mission. And I became good friends with ABC News science Senator Jules Bergman. He was a crackerjack of a guy. And I got to know Walter Cronkite. And I never will forget, I had an appointment with Jules Bergman one morning. And I go over to the ABC News trailer, which was located about 3 miles from the launch pad. As I went in the door, the red light was on, so I knew it was on the air. And I looked down, and there was a fellow sitting in the chair, and I recognized him right away. And I said, "Good morning, General. How are you, sir?" He looked up at me and smiled and said, "A lot of people didn't know I was a general." I said, "Oh, yes, sir. You had a distinguished career in World War II, and I know all about your military career." And he smiled. And, "Hey, you must be here to see Jules. He told me you had a fireman friend coming over today." And being in uniform, it was easy for the general to recognize me as a firefighter. Well, that general just happened to be a very successful entertainer by the name of Jimmy Stewart, who's appeared in a lot of movies. And General Stewart, or Jimmy Stewart, autographed several of my Apollo 12 envelopes that were canceled for the mission. But in addition to meeting Jimmy Stewart, there were a couple other entertainers that were there, but a lot of the political people, Hubert Humphrey, Vice President Humphrey, President Lyndon Johnson, President Richard Nixon, Vice President Spiro Agnew, and a lot of senators, Senator Ted Kennedy.